Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Simply Technical. One of your hosts, Evan, joined again with Keaton here as another host.
A
We don't have a guest this time. Hopefully, I look a little bit better. I was basically dying. Not to be dramatic, I just had the stomach bug, which I guess was going around. Um, I don't know if anybody else got sick from our party, um, but yeah, we're back. I have to do a lot of editing on that one to make sure that I don't look like I'm gonna die. I don't even think I said 1,000 words on the podcast. It was like an hour long. So, anyways, we kind of want to start off talking about education.
Yeah.
And Keen, are we going to talk about kind of federally or just local, like Oklahoma, or in general?
I think in general, that's kind of my ideas. We can also hit like federally, but what is wrong with education? What's good with education, and how do you make it better? Anyway, I won't say I'm any kind of expert on this at all, but I do think I'm good at learning. So at least that portion, I think I have down. So, and I've always been interested in how do we make these sort of things more effective.
Yeah. Well, as I saw a video of Matt Walsh, he says I can read, and I know how to look at a study. So
then you know how to learn.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I know here in Oklahoma we're ranked like 49th and then 47th in like spending. I think I looked that up before the episode. 49th and then 47th in spending. So I guess money doesn't always equal you're smart. But yeah, I mean, let's start off with the bad because we all like to talk about what's bad with everything.
Yeah.
I would say the education is not great in the U.S., but I mean, obviously we have room for improvement with anything that we do. One of the hot topics here in Oklahoma has been school choice. I guess federally too, right? Trump kind of talked about that with Betsy when he was in power, I think.
A little bit, yeah.
Of like school choice. And so like school choice is basically the money you pay in taxes will get given back to you, and then you can use that to spend on public school or private school, depending. Mm-hmm. Is that I'm getting that kind of right?
I think so. I don't know a whole lot about school choice and all that jazz because I don't know how much of a difference it actually makes in educational outcomes. And I think that research is really raw. But in general, I'm pretty for, letting parents have more of a say in their kids' education.
Well, why have we not allowed? And like I said, you might not know this exactly, but up for discussion of like, why are people not allowed to travel schools anyways? Like, I know you can transfer, but it like has to get approved and stuff, right?
I'm not sure. I think it has a lot to do with the tax bases and if you're paying tax, or if some next door, which is a different district, has a higher tax income and they get a better school than you, then everyone on that border is going to end up trying to send their kid to that school, and I think that just overwhelms the per student spending because it's not like they're paying the tax on the
to go to that school.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so I guess that's kind of an issue that has been a problem for a while. Is the nice neighborhoods, owned by rich people, they pay a lot more in property tax, and maybe usually have a lot more land, so they have less students that go to the school. So they get one more funding, and then two, they have less students because people have more land. So then your school is just like tons better, at least based on class size and on like just spending.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I kind of want to set the stage a little bit differently. I think so. Okay. I mean, recently it seems like education has become like the hottest topic in politics. It's become like this massive battleground, and a lot of people talk about like the whole like critical race theory thing. And I actually think a lot of this is like some built up frustration on actual educational outcomes that's released in a different way that we don't really understand, if that makes sense. So what we're actually upset with is the educational system, but these people have sort of latched onto this political issue, and now everyone is attacking the system at large. And so I think that's kind of why it's been such a hot topic recently, and why I've been so interested in what actually makes a kid a good learner, and what makes an effective education. And I don't really think the type of system that we have is going to work. Is definitely not ideal for a student that like excels in uh, in anything. It's kind of built for the median student, which is great. Like before, we had systems that were biased to rich kids who are able to afford better tutors, better schooling, one-on-one education, and then we made it sort of started the public school system, which raised the bottom half up. So, but I think, which is great, but I think when anything produced at mass scale tends to not be ideal on the positive tails, or the edge case positive outcome. So what I would call the Einsteins of the world are lost in this sort of regress to the mean in the sort of mass-produced educational system that we have now. And so I don't really know. So I guess what I most wanted to discuss at first was how do we fix this, and can we fix this? But yeah, do you have any kind of like comment on that?
I'll go to like critical race theory a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily the in depth of what it is, but I think that politicians have made it more about race, because everyone has an opinion on race, or can have an opinion on race, but not necessarily everybody has an opinion on schools. And so to get people more involved, maybe they are adding the race into this side of things. I don't know if that's true or not. That's kind of like my high level, like, well, how do we get people to care about the issue? Well, let's make it a race thing.
Kind of seems like it.
So that's kind of my thought on that. As far as like the rest of your points, I don't really have anything right now. I might think of something.
Yeah, so I'll kind of tee it off then. So educational research basically shows many different things that you would find counterintuitive from either side of the political spectrum. You'll find that actually school choice, or not school choice, because I don't necessarily know if it's studying exactly that, but moving like a lottery system where kids in inner city Chicago or New York City get into better schools doesn't actually improve educational outcomes. Generally, moving to a richer school is not going to improve outcomes. This has been shown time and time again. There's only one thing that has consistently been shown to improve educational outcomes, and that's one-on-one tutoring, and that's called Bloom's 2 sigma theory. And debate is, I think it's theory. I don't know if it's set in stone, but essentially these kids who are tutored perform 2 standard deviations above the average, above the mean, and that's incredible. But the problem is, of course, you can't replicate that at scale. How do you kids can't have one-on-one tutoring at scale, and the only kids who generally do get one-on-one tutoring are rich, well-off kids. And I think recently there's been a huge movement to homeschool again, and a lot of that has been with the sort of political face of, well, they don't like the critical theory stuff being taught in schools, which is not. I don't think that really happens at scale. I think that definitely happens in some schools, but I don't think that happens at a really high scale. And so kids or parents have been pulling their kids out of schools for this reason. I actually think that this will improve kids' educational outcome, because parents that are super involved with their into their or are involved with their child's education and actually care about learning and understanding these topics. I think that's, to me, this isn't like known science or fact or anything. I'm kind of just guessing off the top of my head, but to me, the most important uh, factor in your kid's education is you. Is if you're a parent, it's how much do you care about education? Are you actually a lifelong learner? If you're not learning, then why would they be interested in learning? I think the most important thing to inspiring children is to show that actually learning and understanding and seeking new topics is an extremely valuable part of life and is actually extremely exciting. And I think that today's school system sort of sucks the life out of learning because it's so rote. It's so you don't. I wrote an article on this recently. It's my own, one of two only things that I've ever published out, and it's essentially about like why in the time of the internet you have access to unlimited knowledge, why do we seem to not have as many autodidacts, like self-learners, self-teachers? When you have the unlimited ability to self-teach, it seems like hardly anyone takes advantage of that. And I think it's because school, the way that the system is set up, takes out the love of learning. And it's very obvious when you think about it is you have kids who are excited, curious. I mean, I guess you don't have any younger siblings, but I'm the oldest of 6, so I've been around. I mean, I don't have any kids myself, but I've been around little kids and all my life, and the most obvious thing is, I mean, it's basically a stereotype / meme of kids is they ask why. Well, why? Oh, you have a computer and you're on a podcast. Well, why? And you say, oh, I'm on a podcast because I just want to, get my conversation out there. Well, why? Why is like the most common question, and that why shows like this innate curiosity, and I think we destroy that over time because you have kids sitting in this classroom for 6 to 8 hours a day, when realistically they only need about 2 hours to me to learn everything that they do. It's filler because both parents are working, and the whole system is literally set up in a way that parents can drop their kids off, go to work, come back from work, pick their kids up. And I think it completely degrades the excitement and love of learning for the vast majority of kids. And why, if you went to school for 8 hours a day, why are you going to go home and watch a video on the beauty of calculus or something, or how plants, how photosynthesis works, how are your plants staying alive? Things that are incredibly interesting, but not something that you're going to want to do after learning for 6 or 8 hours a day.
Yeah, well, I guess you said there's no real data on like parents caring. I don't even know if you can do studies on that super easily. But I mean, I remember like thinking back to my high school days, and the parents, just in the classroom, you could just tell the parents cared more. The students were engaged. The students were in AP classes or honors classes, the advanced. And I mean, I knew as a kid, my parents were flat out, we are going to every single parent teacher conference. So you need to be on your best behavior. And if your grades are starting to slip, like we're going to have issues. We're going to, start taking in, punishments of being grounded and, that kind of stuff. So that was instilled very young, of like my parents, like getting online, checking my grades, making sure I'm, keeping up on it, going to every single parent teacher conference. And so I think if you have more of that, that's like, because that just shows that it's an emphasis from your parents. I mean, we're sponges when it comes to learning, but we're especially sponges when it comes to our parents, because we pretty much mirror our parents. If you show me your parents, I can pretty much show you what you're going to be doing with your life in 5, 10, 15 years. And education is very much tied to your criminal record. Um, I know that there used to be a saying that got debunked that was like, oh, the United States uses the stats from reading. I think it's third grade, that the government uses stats from third grade reading to determine how many jail cells they'll need. I'm pretty sure that was disproven. But I think it still has meaning in the fact of like, if you can't do fundamentals, then you're more likely gonna turn to crime. I mean, I don't know, I might be way off base, but that's kind of what I've.
No, I believe that, but I also wonder if that's sort of the other way, or like it could also be the other way around. If you're more likely in the future to commit crime, maybe you're just less likely to be someone who ever tries in school. And the crazy thing about educational outcomes is if you look at at the hierarchy of who does well at the end of high school versus who does poorly, you can almost essentially predict it with 100% accuracy after the first year of grade school. The kids who do well, who are the best at the beginning of of school, are going to be at the top of the bunch when they graduate. They're going to be the ones who end up getting the higher paying positions after college and grad school or whatever they end up doing. And the kids who do poorly at the beginning are going to stay poor doers. And I think that is just 100% indicative of the importance of parental involvement, because where else are they at before school? They're home, learning by osmosis, like you said, the mimicry and parental, just mirroring your parents. So I just wonder how do you fix that that problem? It's just so much more than people saying you have to have school choice versus you have to pay teachers more versus you need smaller class sizes. And all three of those things probably are good things, but I think that they're incremental advances on a problem that requires much more than an incremental change. And unfortunately, I think I don't think we're well equipped to deal with it. I don't know how things are going to change with the way they currently are.
Well, I will say, if everyone gets their tax check back, I guess, or tax benefit, I'm sure private school will go up in price. So anytime the government gets involved in anything, it becomes a lot more expensive. But I also don't think it's just as simple as having a 2-parent household.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that will help, but I think that your house needs to be in order, not just like have the parents there. Now, typically, if you have 2 parents, I guess your house is gonna be a little bit more order. Mm-hmm. But I know that like divorce obviously is tough on kids, and that's tough on their education. Any type of like abuse that's in the home, that's going to affect your education as a kid. I mean, that affects obviously your entire life. But a lot of that stems from education. If you can't focus on school because things at home, I know those are very heavy things, but if you can't focus on things, if you're focusing on things at home, like, is my mom okay or is my dad okay? Like, you're not as focused on school. So yeah, I think it's not just like, oh, well, we just need 2 parents in the household. Like, I don't think that fixes it. I mean, if you have, if you, like I said, and what were the things you listed that you said would be incremental? You said school choice,
paying school choice on the right wing side, paying teachers way more on the left wing side, making classroom sizes smaller by, I actually do think making classroom sizes dramatically smaller would improve, but it's impossible to do.
Well,
Like when I say dramatically smaller, I mean like 5 kids to one
less
teacher.
than 10 or something, or less than
Yes.
12. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, I think that school choice and smaller classroom sizes, I guess those three, I would agree that they're incremental, but I think they widen the gap between your smart kids and your average kids. Because I think, to your point that you made early on in the episode, that we kind of go to the common denominator.
We
Like the
regress to
smart
the
kids,
mean.
we regress. Yeah. So by school choice, if the kids that their parents care a lot more and they want to get them in a good school, not necessarily the closest, or they want to get them to a private school, I think that just separates the gap more between your smart kids and your bell curve, I guess. Which I guess would be incremental progress to kind of what you were saying.
Yeah. I guess I mean I believe that probably be the case. I mean, what they always that like cliche of you're the average of your 5 people you spend the most time with. When you're a kid, if you're spending time with a bunch of geniuses, you're probably going to end up being a genius.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe that's why my parents always forced me to be friends with like kids from church and
Be friends with
like
all the nerds.
yeah, like oh, be good friends with the nerds. And I made them more social, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at Oklahoma's like budget for this year, $30 billion. That seems like a lot. I don't know how much that is per kid, but
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how many kids there are.
There's more than 100. I can guarantee that. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the like? I guess if you increase budget, the left wing side that you were saying, like increasing budget and increasing teacher pay, you say that's pretty incremental, or
Yeah, I think it's incremental. I think you'll see improvements, but you're not going to see massive gains. That's my opinion, and I don't necessarily think that we shouldn't do those things. I think that I do think that teachers are some of the most valuable occupation in society, and I think a way to get better teachers in is to pay them more. So people who are less inclined to go to teaching because of the pay and end up going to med school or something, maybe they switch back. But I still just think it's like an incremental gain for something that would be incredibly expensive.
well, maybe we need to do a better job of training teachers. And this is just out of left field, but if you pay, like, say Oklahoma pays, is like, hey, we're going to give teachers a raise. Okay, you might get teachers. It's just like a raise for any other job. You get an incremental change, like a little bit more oomph in your step. You're like, okay, well, this seems a little bit more worth it. But obviously, you get complacent. But I would say if Oklahoma pays teachers more, okay, we're going to take teachers from Texas or Arkansas, or, take teachers from elsewhere. But that doesn't necessarily help overall. That just helps Oklahoma. It's like you're just taking from other school districts. It's not like you're getting teachers better overall.
Yeah.
If teachers are at a 75% of their peak, well, taking a teacher from another school district doesn't help your percentage go up. It only lowers it from another and raises yours. If you could get teachers to 80%, or 85%, of their capacity, I guess, that would be better from a, analytical side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like I said, like teachers do one of the hardest jobs and most
I think it's
most
easy.
important jobs.
I'll be.
Well, this is what I was going to say is they do one of the most important jobs, but the problem with teachers is I don't think they actually are passionate about learning. I think they're more passionate about helping kids rather than I don't. This is the honest truth is I don't think teachers are going home to learn more about their topic or their subject that they teach every day to stay on top of the field because they're so passionate about that topic or subject. And I actually think that's one of the most negative aspects. I think to truly inspire someone to be passionate about learning, you have to be passionate about learning. You have to be the expert in the field. Even if you're teaching algebra 1, you should be excited about math. You should be someone who can do calculus. You should probably be all the way up there in linear algebra. You should be excited about the advances in machine learning that are built on linear algebra, these type of things that really get kids excited because you know the application later in life. And I don't think that that's what we generally get with teachers, which is fine. But the truth is, that's probably, I mean, I say it now, I could definitely change this in the future just because of time and financial commitments. But right now, if I was to have a kid that was, 5 years old right now, I would be homeschooling them because I think I can teach them better than the teachers can. And because I'm someone who likes learning. I'm someone who's excited about basically every single topic, at least up to, probably at freshman college level is where I hit the limits on all domains. For science, I could teach them anything, but for for history, English, all that, I'd probably hit freshman college level and peak right about there. But I that's my opinion. Is I think I could teach better and inspire more excitement about knowledge in my own kids.
Yeah, I'm gonna get canceled for saying that teaching is easy. I think in the current state of like showing up, teaching, going home, super easy. Yeah, like I said, I'll get canceled for that, but it's fine. To your point of they don't go home and learn, I think if you lower the amount of time that kids are in school, teachers have like, hey, you're only teaching, because they have 2 planned periods right now or something like that, at least here. Okay, well, now you're going to have 4 planned periods. You're only teaching for 4 hours. Now you need to learn, brush up on stuff, brush up on teaching, trainings, or whatever. That kind of stuff. I think that would be extremely beneficial. Different teaching methods, how to use the equipment that you're given, more efficiently, more effectively, communicating with parents, like trying to get them involved, like, hey, your kid's really struggling. And I know they do that already, but if you have more time to do that kind of stuff, it's less likely for kids to fall behind.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah,
but but in the current situation, how do you go? Because kids are in school, like you said, for when their parents are working, usually, typically. So how do you can't really fix that just.
No, you can't. It's the whole problem with the whole system. I think, to me, an ideal mass-produced education system, and I still think this is not ideal. I think the pinnacle of ideal education is a one-on-one education with experts in domains. That's impossible to achieve at scale. So I can just throw that out. I think at scale, the most ideal situation is to have kids going in for 2 hours a day and going home, and so teachers can keep full-time jobs, because obviously we're not going to pay them to work 2 hours a day. You have tiny class sizes. So it's still an 8-hour day, 4 batches of 2 hours, 4 different sets of kids, coming in and out. So essentially you cut your class size into fourths. And that's my opinion, is that it would improve a lot, but it's just not possible with the way the economy is set up, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, especially with the amount of teachers we have, because if you're saying that a teacher has, what were you saying, about 20 students total? Is that what you're saying, about 20 total?
Well, I think most class sizes are like 30.
Yeah, 30, and then they have 7 classes a day or 6 classes a day. So they have over 100 students.
Yeah. Well, I'll say I'm most passionate about really young education, like elementary, even pre-elementary, because the truth is, getting on that starting on that great trajectory is really predictive for the future outcomes in your life. I think you start hitting to middle school and high school, you're kind of running late, like, in the game at that point. So right now I'm just going to talk elementary, where teachers have 1 class all day, and those kids are in one classroom all day because so many habits and so much excitement and love of learning is built in that uh, those younger ages.
I'll say this: the the best thing that you can learn when you're a kid, at least in those early years, is confidence. If you're confident in your answer or in learning, that's super beneficial, like
Mm-hmm.
immensely. They say that's one of the biggest indicators of people being good at math is how confident they are in math. Like,
Yeah,
oh, what's 2 plus 2? Well, I know that's 4. If you're super, not necessarily like answering quickly or answering confidently, but being confident of like, well, I know the answer. I'm not going to be scared to answer that. I know it's 4.
yeah.
I know that math is come under fire a lot recently with education, but I think that's a big deal is confidence.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I will show my own Substack for a second, but this is like the last two lines in my post on education, and it's that confidence and love of learning is built when a person finally understands something on their own accord and realizes they no longer have to fear any subject. Knowing that you have the tools available and the ability to teach yourself nearly anything is the most powerful skill you can have. The ability, the confidence to know that you can teach yourself anything is by far the most important skill you can develop as a kid. And I think we don't, I mean, this is something that wasn't really possible until recently, until the advent of the internet. You really can learn anything now if you spend the time and put the hours in. But unfortunately, we sort of have made every single topic so complexified or seemingly so complexified that I guess I'm going to kind of go out of childhood education now and more into adulthood, uh, just for analogy's sake, because it fits a little bit better. But we've so complexified every single skill that we make it feel as though you have to spend 4 years at college to be able to do anything. And if you want to switch and learn something new, that
Got to
barrier,
reset the time.
yeah, you have to. No one has the time, and I think that almost that 80 to 90% of the of this is, I guess it will be field and domain specific, but I think the vast majority of it can be learned at least at 2 to 3 times the rate that the general public perceives a skill to be learned at. And I think when it comes to kids learning, that's also true. Is I think kids could be learning math at a way faster rate, but unfortunately, we regress to the mean, and everyone has to learn at the pace of the slower students' abilities in the class, and so that ends up killing the desire to learn math because learning to me is a like a snowball effect, or it should be like a snowball effect. You should be understanding something and then be excited to run to the next thing. And uh, let's just call it math. Let's just say you burned through uh, uh, basic third and fourth grade math, and you want to go on further. And sometimes, there's some programs where you can go up a grade, but a lot of times you can't, and so you have to wait. And by the time you've waited, that excitement is gone, and you're not really passionate about it anymore. Or let's say you want to learn something that is way too advanced for the level you're at in fifth grade math. You want to learn something related to, let's just call it geometry. Let's say geometry. Well, everyone's going to say, okay, you got to wait 4 years, man. Like you, you got to learn this and this and this. And I think it's true. Math is one of the more linear learning subjects, but I still think that if with excitement and passion, you can go onto the internet and you can at least get a decent grasp on any concept that you're excited about. And I think that the way our educational system is set up is we scare people away from ever pursuing more difficult tasks. And I feel like I hit this in my own education as a kid. Like I was the absolute superstar at math. My all of elementary, like I was very good, and everyone talked, oh, you're going to be math genius. Well, as time went on, I was like less excited about math, and we get to sixth grade, more excited about girls and being cool, and math isn't cool. And unfortunately, I sort of lost that little math. And now I think I'm not. I also think I'm not good at math anymore. But I think if I would have been able to in third grade when I was playing at the level of fifth graders, if I would have been able to keep playing at the level of fifth graders, I would have still been excited and kept going, and it would have been like something that was like an integral part of my education. But I think that being sort of held back and held to the standards of everyone around kills excitement in subjects that kids are perceived or think that kids are good at as compared to their peers. And every kid is different. We're all better at different things. Unfortunately, we all got to play at the same level generally as the rest of our age group.
Well, I'll say, I think a Band-Aid to that, or kind of a symptom reliever, the Advil or the ibuprofen of this symptom or this problem, would be splitting kids up more. That, I don't know if that's kind of controversial, because I mean, parents are obviously going to be super upset if they get in like if their kid's in a lower one. But like, I never really struggled, like in middle school and high school, I never struggled with trying to learn more, I guess, because I was in the quote unquote, in middle school, we called it honors. We didn't have AP and, advanced placement or pre-AP in middle school, but we had honors. And so like you had honors classes that were people that met a certain threshold, and then you had just normal classes. And in high school, it turned into pre-AP and AP, but you had this separation of like, well, this is more advanced. You're going to learn, geometry as an eighth grader instead of a freshman, or that kind of stuff, or whatever it was. Geometry as a freshman instead of a sophomore. So I think if you can separate people more, that might be a little bit better, because you can teach to a different exponential instead of linear, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But yeah, it's definitely a super controversial topic, because that sort of entails kids left behind, and on top of that, kids that are maybe don't quite fit the mold of what we think is an exceptional learner. And I do think that these kids I think it's overstated on kids who are not good at school actually being really good at something else. I think it's overstated, but it certainly exists. and I think maybe in that case we could be leaving behind the few that actually are not good at school but are secret geniuses.
I mean, Gary Vee is a very good example of that. I don't know if he's necessarily a genius, but he definitely breaks the mold of like his parents were very involved with him. If you don't know who Gary Vee is, Gary Vaynerchuk, look him up. Super, I would say super smart. He's very black and white, I guess. People love him or hate him, but anyways, he wasn't
talking about a race.
No. I don't know what the term is. It's like,
that makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah.
I think there's a specific term for that. But anyways, Gary Vee, he hated school, and he knew he hated school, and all his teachers said, you're not going to amount to anything unless you try harder. He didn't care about school. His parents were super involved with him. They were like, hey, you need to do better in school. Like, try harder at this. And he was like, I really don't care, but I'm super good at, I forgot exactly what he said he was super good at, but ended up turning into like business. I mean, he's a super successful entrepreneur. He turned his dad's wine business from, a couple $1 million to, multi-millions, like, $50 million. Now, granted, he had good timing with the internet, but still was able to turn this, but he sucked at school, and he knew he sucked at school. He hated it. So I mean, there is obviously edge cases, and I don't necessarily know how you deal with that. But there is also the other side of it of somebody like me. I was in between. There was some like math. I'm actually really good at math. I'm an engineer, but I didn't get into seventh grade honors. Um, I wasn't, I guess, good at math then. I don't know. They and I could have easily gotten quote unquote left behind or not reached my potential. But I knew I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to go to this pre-engineering school, Votech or uh, career tech is what they like to call it. And I wanted to go there. So what I do, I doubled up on math in high school. So I took algebra 2 and geometry at the same time so that I could speed up and catch up to the other people. So I think it does a lot to do with drive. I mean, there's options out there. So
Yeah, yeah. I guess it is hard just to. I mean, how do you instill drive is like the ultimate question, and I mean, I don't know because I was super driven in elementary school, lost that drive all the way through high school, did terrible freshman year of college, and then sort of regained it around. I mean, I honestly like did a lot better at the end of college or the last 3 years of college than the first year, but didn't really regain this sort of drive until after college to just there's something about not being forced to learn and just learning on whatever you want that made it so easy for me to learn basically any topic, like teaching myself to code, teaching myself machine learning. Right now I'm going back through math, catching up on the old uh, uh, my math days and trying to finish learning calculus, but stuff that I never cared about before. It's just something weird about having freedom to go in all sorts of order, and I just wonder how do you make kids ex- eh, excited in that way? Is the $1 million question.
well, something that drives me a lot is social embarrassment. um, how embarrassing would it be? You're good at school in high school, you go to college and you drop out. You wasted all this potential. Like what are people going to say? I think that drives a lot of it.
Mhm.
Like my financial literacy wasn't all that great, and then I got a house. Obviously, it's good enough to get a house, but well, how embarrassing is it going to be if I have to foreclose on my house? Like, okay, well, I better save. Like,
Better learn that. Yeah.
yeah, I better learn how to save, or better,
Yeah.
So I think this is another hot take that's gonna get me canceled. Is I think bullying in some instances is okay, and when I mean bullying is like your peers like pushing you to do better. Not necessarily like
Yeah.
you're ugly, but like you can't like you don't. That's not okay. But like
No, it's like, you idiot. Yeah. How'd you fail
yeah,
that test?
exactly. Like okay, well my friend just called me an idiot. Like I better. That's embarrassing. I better study
Yeah.
harder for the next one. I don't want to drop out. Like that's
It's
what I
called
mean.
skin in the game for your mental skin in the game, sort of.
Yeah, like I said, bullying not really okay, but the way that I phrased it there, we phrased it, I think is very valid. And if you see that as my friends are pushing me to do better, um, that's a lot better than that kind of than
Mhm.
actually bullying somebody on like their parent, whatever else it is.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. I also, I guess we're kind of nearing a little bit to the end. So I would say maybe that's something on the horizon that really could improve educational outcomes by quite a bit and sort of get a fraction of this one-on-one tutoring that's been shown to be so effective for education for and making this more available at scale is the AI assistants and being able all kids being able to ask whatever the heck they want to the AI and well obviously that could go wrong but but
within
if
reason. Yeah,
you have it tuned to a as a sort of tutor, let's just call it the Einstein AI, like okay, you want to learn anything about math, physics, you want to go all the way up to space-time and general relativity. Well, you can ask her the Einstein AI. Oh, you want to learn about I don't know who's a
Khan Academy.
Yeah, you have Khan Academy. So they're like some great historian. Oh, you want to learn about history? Well, let's talk to the Aristotle AI or philosophy. Sorry, let's talk to Aristotle AI or Plato AI, and you have access to these sort of
Fictional. Yeah.
yes, that could be incredibly accurate. I mean, and ChatGPT is already great for me to just ask random questions. It's incredible for programming. You learning to program alongside ChatGPT is probably the first major use case, but I could see math becoming the next big thing. And of course, this could be completely botched by kids just cheating and asking how do I do this problem and getting the answer. So I think you have to have these, whatever the apps are tuned to, not give the answer, but to explain the process and maybe eventually crack after a long time if the kid can't get it. And yeah, I think maybe that could hold some promise in the future for getting the sort of one-on-one tutoring at scale and really assisting teachers to more focus on kids who are maybe struggling a little bit more and focus on the behavior in their classrooms and less on all the menial work as a teacher. I don't really know what teachers have to deal with day to day. I've heard plenty of horror stories of kids' behavior. It seems like kids' behavior is more important than teaching because so many kids are so disruptive, ruining things for other kids. So yeah, that's something I am excited about in the future, the near future, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's do like a little summary of what we kind of talked about so far. What's kind of your summary on how to fix education?
Okay, so really fast. One-on-one tutoring has been shown to be the greatest predictor of educational outcomes. How do we get why is education so bad? Well, because we don't inspire kids to learn. I think teachers tend to be more focused on behavioral issues in the classroom rather than the love of learning. And I think that sort of kids mimic and see that, and the extremely long hours of school degrade the educational process and the excitement of learning. And I think that when it comes to inspiring kids to learn more, we need to ourselves as adults and as teachers or as parents to be excited about learning and understanding. And I mean, knowledge and greater understanding of the world is one of the most incredible, beautiful things about life to me is you sort of understand how things work. And with history, you get to learn more about you. History is you, humanity. Science, you get to learn more about the world, how your body works, how cells are working. Math, you get to sort of understand the language of what I call the language of God, how the universe, the laws that the universe abides by. Things that are made super boring in school, but are actually really fascinating and exciting when you have the right person to explain them to you.
Okay. Mine is going to be super quick. I say split up kids more based on their acceleration of learning, and then 2, parents to care more and to be giving confidence and more boosting mentality towards their kids' learning. Because I think like a lot of parents will be involved with their kids with things that are outside of school of like, hey, you're really nice to that person. Good job. Praise that, praise that, praise that. But they're not necessarily super praiseworthy or praising of school accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
I think that instills so much confidence and keys in on, hey, this is important. My parents are complimenting me on this. Let's focus on that. We can get more compliments if we continue. So yeah. I don't know. My parents were always super complimentary of school accomplishments, of being polite, and those are things that I'm that are instilled in me that I carry on with. So.
Yeah, I would say so. On that note, that reminds me of something I completely forgot to miss: is how much of our uh, excitement and belief in ourselves and confidence in our ability to learn is built by our parents or the teacher saying, "Wow, you're actually really good at math," and then that's like becomes your identity. You're like, "Oh, I'm good at math," and then you learn math because you know you're good at math. But I think it works 10 times worse in the opposite direction. It's like the self-labeling of, oh, I did really bad on math in first grade. I'm bad at math. And then that's your whole identity for the rest of your life. And you're always going to be bad at math because you think you're bad at math. So why would you care to really try at math? I think that what you just said is like so important. I can't believe I completely forgot to even talk
Mention
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. I brought it up because I knew you were thinking it. Yeah. I mean, getting compliments, and I don't know if that's just a me thing or a guy thing, or maybe it's in general. I don't know. But like getting compliments,
everyone.
getting compliments on things that you're good at or things you've improved on, I think is vital as well. That gets you to catch up on things. Like, oh, I'm not a math person. Well, little Susie, good job. You didn't get it this time, but hey, the second go around, you improved and we got there. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I am. Maybe math is not such a bad thing. You start to gain that confidence and it starts to, as you said, snowball and steamroll into, well, now I'm a math person. In second grade, I wasn't a math person, but in sixth grade, hey, I'm killing the pre-algebra. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so weird how like fragile our egos and future really are when we're kids. Like I can actually remember, I mean, this is sad example, I guess, but good and perfectly reflective of this. I was known as a good presenter in class. And then one day I was also like really a good student. I was overly perfect. If I did anything wrong, I was devastated. One day I forgot about a presentation, which made me extremely nervous. Got up there super nervous, was made fun of for like probably a day. And for ever since then, it's gotten a lot better now, but still not perfect. But after that, I was a terrible presenter forever because I labeled myself as a bad presenter. And it was always in my head every time I presented, oh crap, I did so bad that one time. And I think that's true for everything. Like we said, you're bad at math. That you're gonna be bad at math. And hitting kids with compliments on, and maybe even exaggerating a little bit on their ability, or like, oh, an improvement. Oh wait, oh, you actually are really good at math. You improved your score by 20% this time around. You have this ability. Is I think it's actually very key because as kids, the ego is so fragile. Our psyche is so being built so much at the beginning stages that it's crazy what just sticks with you when it comes to that sort of stuff.
We didn't talk about this before, and you may not want to talk about this at all.
Mm-hmm.
What about kids getting diagnosed with like ADHD at a super young age?
Oh my gosh.
This might be too hot topic for you. I don't know.
I mean, I think it 100% goes along with the how long are kids being forced to sit in class every day. They're getting diagnosed with ADHD. Why? It seems like there's definitely kids that actually have ADHD. That it's very legit. I think 90+% are probably crap. Like it's not real. It's because they're being forced to sit for 6 hours a day. Yet a kid is a ball of energy that wants to do everything. That every kid has ADHD. Who doesn't have ADHD? What's a greater marker for someone who should be an incredible learner than someone who can't focus on one topic for too long because they are interested in so many things? What I feel like that's the greatest marker for someone who is the perfect self-teacher or autodidact self-learner, is someone who can't focus on one thing because something else excites them at any given moment.
And since we talked about how fragile it is, hey, little Johnny, you can't focus because you have ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
How devastating is that to some little kid's psyche that, well, I'm just this way because I have a mental illness, or I don't know if that's the right term.
Oh yeah,
but
I'm a bad learner because I can't focus and
I have to take these pills. Yeah.
Yes.
I think that has a tremendous negative impact. I bet if you just gave them the pill and didn't tell them anything about it, they would probably end up being a lot better in the future.
Oh yeah.
There's no stats. I don't have any stats behind that, but
I mean, placebo effect is a real thing, and yeah, I think the whole ADHD thing could be almost a whole episode itself. It's just, to me, it's a matter of, well, we got to get these kids to calm down and sit in here quietly for 6 hours. I keep saying 6 hours. A school day is an 8-hour day essentially, so 8 hours.
Well, you have recess and lunch if they still do recess.
Yeah, I don't count. I count it all together. I got to get these kids to be quiet for the full day. So we're going to give them, some medicine, and they'll focus.
The other issue with that then is what? We prescribe way more than we need to just because. Well, it's a problem. Let's prescribe. We could go. Yeah. We could have a whole nother topic about all this, but I just was curious what your thoughts were on it.
Oh yeah, I think we could definitely go off on that. I think education is also something we could have other podcasts on. We could get some teachers on and really dig into what they think about. I don't think teachers' job is easy. I think teachers could be doing. I think a lot of teachers could be doing better with their excitement for learning. I just think that but I do think that the incentive system is messed up to where teachers are required and have to focus more on, the behavior and management of kids. Yeah, standardized testing but the management of the kids in the classroom rather than the inculcation of the love of learning. And I always think back, my two favorite teachers, I remember a few teachers, but my two favorite ones, the reason they were my favorite are not because they were so nice. Both of them were very nice, but it's because they were cool. They knew way more than was required of them. Mrs. D in 5th grade was where you learn some history, where you learn U.S. history. She loved U.S. history, and she went so much further than she needed to. So it was really exciting and really cool to learn history, and it sort of made me love it. And then Mr. Chitty in 7th grade loved science. He did more than was required of him. I still remember the very first day of class. He did some. I actually don't remember what it was, but he did something with fire, and that I thought at the time was just the coolest thing. I was like, wow, okay, he knows stuff. He actually knows science. Like, this is exciting. And I think that's something that no one really talks about, that teachers who really care about their subject and knowledge make for the best teachers.
Well, I got to shout out some of my teachers then now. Yeah, 7th grade, I had a history teacher, Mr. Birch. He was also my football coach, but he made history super cool. Like he had like a radio and would turn on like battle theme music and would go over different wars that were like, the 300 war, and like just had this like it was just made it cool. Like the persona, he'd have all it was a slideshow about history, and then when we got into the intense parts, he'd press play and this like really intense music comes on and you're like jacked up about this war. So like that was super cool. I had another history teacher in high school, Coach Ryan, another coach, of course, football and coaches and history. He had it was actually cool. He had like discussion. We hardly had any papers. It was all like just discussion about different things. It was pretty cool. I liked that. Even though he was super controversial. We won't get into that. No. And then two of my math teachers, Mrs. Herndon, my geometry teacher, super enthusiastic, like super encouraging. She actually would come in an hour early and stay an hour late. And you could come in for tutoring. Like, hey, I didn't get this in class. So that was cool. I didn't necessarily need it, but I would go in just so I could skip football practice. And then Mr. Hawk, my calculus teacher, he didn't really do anything super cool. He was just super knowledgeable, had like a swagger about him. he seemed like a scientist that knew, like you said, you could just tell he knew more and had different like methods of, like, we did like whiteboard stuff, like he'd put stuff on a whiteboard, or you'd like, hey, here's a problem, what does this equal, and you'd write it on the whiteboard and show it. Could be embarrassing to some students of like, well, I got the answer wrong. But then when you get it wrong, he'd like go up to you and like, hey, this is why, walk through it with you. So the one-on-one opportunities that we had with teachers, I think, at least for me, was very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of goes to what we were talking about throughout the episode.
Oh yeah.
Any hot takes?
I don't have a hot take, but I do have like something I wanted to say related to this whole topic. It's just something I don't have the time to do, and I've been thinking about it for a long time. But on this whole thing, we talked about the one-on-one tutoring being the most important decider in outcomes and education. And one of the groups of kids that has the worst outcomes in education are foster kids, and it's not a huge group of kids. And I always thought there would be a really good place for like a nonprofit that could pay, sort of intellectual people who love learning, pay them a good rate to just be a one-on-one tutor for foster kids, and they have some stability and could probably do a lot better in school than what they are. And I think it's relatively easy to set up, and I think it would raise quite a bit of money. It's just I don't have the time to do that between grad school and all the other stuff I do. But yeah, that's my not hot take, but my mini call to action. Maybe someone will be inspired, and hopefully, if they listen this far, could get the ball rolling on that.
Well, we'll put that on TikTok, and somebody will be inspired by that and say, that is a good idea. And
hopefully.
Yeah, the 3 people that watch our TikTok. So my 3 alt accounts. I don't have anything else, but appreciate you guys listening. If you listen this far, tell everybody in the comments that Keaton has great hair, and we'll like that and respond to it. But this has been Simply Technical. Thank you much for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.